Hey, what's going on? Ryan here with Intersection Records, and we're talking Jimmy Page. We're talking about just his post-Zeppelin career. You know, Jimmy Page co-wrote and produced all of the Led Zeppelin music. Prior to that, he was in the Yardbirds. Really changed the way that rock guitar playing and heavy music would be going forward in the Yardbirds, and then certainly with Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin was founded in 1968, and they went all the way through the year 1980. John Bonham passes away on the 25th of September, 1980, and then by December 4th, they decided they can't go on. There's some talk maybe that a Cozy Powell might replace, but they decide that they can't really go on without him. He's just, you know, if you know the music, he's irreplaceable. So what does Jimmy Page then do? And one of the reasons why I'm kind of doing this video is because of some recent articles about, you know, David Coverdale wanting to maybe revisit some of the back catalog of Coverdale Page. The fact that Jimmy Page has not been active in years. And, you know, famously, he's put out reissues and remasters of the Zeppelin catalog, really just almost ad nauseum. With all, you know, every 10 years or so, there's a new remastered issue. And it's, well, how much more can you do to these records? So here's a little post-Led Zeppelin recap on Jimmy. You know, in 1981, in February of 1981, just a couple months after the passing of John Bonham and the breakup, Jimmy Page gets in the studio with Alan White and Chris Squire from Yes, who had recently kind of broken up the Yes lineup, and they're free agents, along with keyboardist Dave Lawson, and they do a jam session. So Jimmy Page, Alan White on drums, Chris Squire on bass, Dave Lawson, and they work on some projects with the idea that maybe Robert Plant would then come in to do some vocals on this. And they're calling this XYZ, X Yes, X Zeppelin. Finally, Jimmy Page says this music's too complex. You know, where are we going to drop a vocal in? Robert Plant doesn't seem all that interested. That breaks up. You know, ultimately, a song called Fortunate Hunter would be released out of those sessions on the firm's 1986 album, Mean Business. Page then works with director Michael Winner on the Death Wish 2 soundtrack in February of 82. That's released, and it's critically acclaimed, and it is pretty cool. There are a couple fully constructed instrumental pieces. The rest of it's ambient soundtrack music. Coda, the final Led Zeppelin album, is released November 19th of 82. This has Wearing and Tearing on it. It has some other kind of great tracks. It's really an underrated record, but most of this is leftover stuff from the classic 70s period of Led Zeppelin. In fact, all of it is. In 1983, Ronnie Lane is suffering from multiple sclerosis. He is a bass player and singer of Faces, and there's some benefit concerts held from September to December of 83. Page does take part in these jams, in these concerts, plays alongside Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck, does an instrumental version of Stairway. On the North American tour, Paul Rodgers replaces Steve Winwood and does some jamming and live performing with Jimmy Page, in which they do a song that they write, Midnight Moonlight. In 1984, spring, March of 84, Jimmy Page works a little bit again with Robert Plant on the Honey Drippers Volume 1 songs I Get a Thrill and Sea of Love, and that's fairly critically acclaimed as well. June of 84, Jimmy Page joins Yes on stage in Germany for a version of I'm Down blues classic. Again, Page has already been working a little bit in 84 or late 83 with Paul Rodgers. Well, in 1984, they get together with Chris Slade on drums and Tony Franklin, and of course Paul Rodgers, and they formed the band The Firm. And in February of 85, they released their debut album, The Firm. And it has great songs on it, like Satisfaction Guaranteed and the hit Radioactive. March of that same year of 85, Page works with Roy Harper on his 13th studio album, Whatever Happens to Jugula, and this is featuring Tony Franklin on bass as well. Also in March of 85, Page works a little bit again with his former bass player John Paul Jones and plays two tracks of Jones's solo album and co-writes the song Crackback with Jones. That same summer of 85, famously, the USA for Africa and the concert for Live Aid for Ethiopia Relief happens July 13th of 85. John Paul Jones, Robert Plant, and Jimmy Page reunite as Led Zeppelin with drummers Tony Thompson and Phil Collins, and they perform a set with featuring Rock and Roll, Whole Lotta Love, and Stairway to Heaven. This is a bit of a mess. Blame can be placed on Phil Collins for his role, but really it's an unrehearsed show, very little rehearsing, and it's hard to get too critical when you're going up and jamming in front of 100,000 people and you've done very little rehearsing. I think it sounds pretty good. Check out the Live Aid footage. In 1986, February, the firm's second album, Mean Business, comes out. Love the song All the King's Horses, probably my favorite song of the firm's era. I'm not a big Firm fan, but that's a great song. Some more studio work from Page happens in 1986, including some work with Graham Nash and Stephen Stills on separate projects. Page also provides solo guitar work on the Rolling Stones' 1986 album Dirty Work. Check out the song One Hit to the Body. February 29th of 88, Page plays on Robert Plant's fourth studio album, Now and Zen. He plays guitar solos on Tall Cool One and Heaven Knows. What a great album that is. May 14th of 88, Led Zeppelin reforms again, this time with Jason Bonham on drums for the 40th anniversary of Atlantic Records. They play Kashmir, Heartbreaker, Whole Lotta Love, Misty Mountain Hop, and Stairway Again. Sounds like Plant and Page argued just prior to going on stage about performing Stairway to Heaven. Of course, they do it. This is something that Page and Plant they think that this reunion was foul and bad. Forgot to note, in January of 86, the three members of Led Zeppelin secretly meet in Bath, England, and have some rehearsals for a possible 1986 Led Zeppelin reunion. Tony Thompson is present at that jam. And again, they have a secret location in Bath near Peter Gabriel's house, and this does not work out for an 86 reunion. Again, after the Atlantic Records 40th reunion concert, Outrider is released in June of 1988. This is really the only proper Jimmy Page solo album. It has 9 songs on it. 3 of them are instrumentals. There's vocals from John Miles, Chris Farlow, and Robert Plant on one song, the only one. Awesome song. Jason Bonham on drums, Tony Franklin and on bass, and Jethro Tull's Barrymore Barlow also is featured on drums. Check out the song Wasting Time on that record. I love that song with John Miles on vocals. Jason Bonham gets married April of 1990. The surviving members of Led Zeppelin, along with Jason Bonham, do a little jam at his wedding in April of 90. June 30th of 90, Page and Plant reunite at Knebworth, and they play Wearing and Tearing, famously off of Coda, Misty Mountain Hop, and Rock and Roll. That was live, a live broadcast. I remember that summer seeing that live and thinking how cool it was to see Page and Plant together. Again, they had played in '85 at Live Aid and in the 40th reunion of Atlantic Records, but this was live on the air, and it was awesome. Also that summer at Donington Castle, Monsters of Rock, Page joins Aerosmith for Train Kept A-Rolling. Really, he's kind of inactive for a few years. In March 91 and 92, he's working with David Coverdale on what would become Coverdale Page. And finally, in March of 93, Coverdale Page is released, and it's a fantastic record, I think. Shake My Tree, great song. Pride and Joy, and my favorite song, Absolution Blues. Just to name a few songs off that fantastic record. Check out Coverdale Page. November of, they do set up a tour. They play some shows, Coverdale Page in Japan. I actually have tickets for this tour, and then the tour is canceled for 1994. Maybe because Robert Plant and Jimmy Page are starting to work. And then finally in November of 94, Unleaded is released, a Page and Plant reunion featuring songs from Led Zeppelin and a couple of new songs. John Paul Jones famously is not asked to reunite, and this is not considered a Led Zeppelin project. We have Charlie Jones on bass and the great Michael Lee on drums. Rest in peace, Michael. You were one of the great drummers in rock history. February of 1995, that tour starts in North America. I saw one of the early shows in Memphis in March of 1995. And then I actually saw the first opening night of the European tour in Paris, France. There's an Egyptian orchestra on this tour, and it's a fantastic, well-received tour, as you may know. The band stays together. In 1998, in April, they released their one and only Page and Plant studio album, Walking into Clarksdale. Features a couple great songs, Most High, Please Read the Letter. Tour in 98 follows. This is more of a stripped down tour. Poor Old Thompson, who did add second guitar in the 95 tour, is now back in the band with Charlie Jones and Michael Lee. So it's just a 5-piece, amazing tour. That same summer of 98, Puff Daddy released a song called Come With Me, featuring some samples from Kashmir for the movie Godzilla soundtrack. Pretty cool. They performed live together at Saturday Night Live. October of 1999, Page joins the Black Crowes in concert for 6 nights. And from these 6 nights at the Greek in February of 2000, they release Live at the Greek, the Black Crowes featuring Jimmy Page, revisiting some deeper tracks of the Led Zeppelin category and some blues jams and workouts. They continue on the summer of 2000, touring, in which Jimmy Page hurts his back and falls off of that project. And I think that Chris Robinson wanted to write with Jimmy, but his brother Rich did not want any part of that. Page and Plant finally in July of 2001 performed their last show in Montreux. So Page and Plant's over by July of 2001. And really, Page kind of then goes on another hiatus for a number of years until finally in the year 2007 for the Ahmet Ertegun tribute concert, who was the founder of Atlantic Records. Led Zeppelin reunites with Jason Bonham finally for a full-fledged concert. And Celebration Day is the resulting live album and DVD that comes out. So they do a show in London at the O2 Arena, a full-blown Led Zeppelin show, famously wins the Grammy, and it's a fantastic representation of modern-day Led Zeppelin. Definitely check that out. At this point, Jason Bonham, John Paul Jones, and Jimmy Page really do want to reform Zeppelin. Robert Plant's had success in Grammy-winning success with Alison Krauss on a bluegrass record. Robert Plant nixes this reunion. John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page join the Foo Fighters on stage at Wembley Stadium on June 7th of 08 and perform Ramble On and Rock and Roll. Page then, later that summer, closes out the Summer Olympics in London with Leona Lewis on August 24th of 08. Page then joins, does the documentary It Might Get Loud, featuring Jack White and The Edge. And it's a fantastic documentary about the electric guitar. There's great jams on it. at the end of the documentary, it shows Page in a big kind of ballroom by himself playing acoustic guitar. Page says that the little reaction that he got from those acoustic songs really kind of hit him in the gut. He thought he'd get some more run for those songs, and to be honest with you, they're just kind of ordinary. But the documentary that Page co-produces, It Might Get Loud, is fantastic. In 2009, Page joins Jeff Beck on stage for Beck's Bolero, an immigrant song, for the Jeff Beck's induction to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In June of 2011, he joins Donovan on stage for Sunshine Superman at the Royal Albert Hall. In July of 11, he joins the Black Crowes at Shepherd's Bush. And then really, from what I can tell, his last live performance is November 5th of 2011 at Roy Harper's 70th birthday party. You know, the members of Led Zeppelin get a Kennedy Center Award in 2012, where Ann Wilson sings Stairway to Heaven, amongst other Led Zeppelin classics, and it's touching. Celebration Day gets a Grammy in 2013, and really we haven't seen or heard much from Page other than remastering and some books that he's put out since then. You know, Jimmy Page, you're a master. You don't owe us any more work. We'd love it just because we're selfish and we want you to have some new work. And that's my little story on the post-Zeppelin of Jimmy Page. Subscribe to my channel if you like. Peace out. Talk to you later.